He met with the oil and gas companies 40 times. So is it any wonder then that the laws that are written in Washington are very good for Dick Cheney, they're good for ExxonMobil, but they're not so good for you? Same thing on healthcare. We've been talking about healthcare now for how long? Decades. Every 4 years, president comes before you, we're going to solve the healthcare crisis. Nothing happens. Why? The drug companies and the insurance companies spent $1 billion over the last 10 years. An average of $100 million a year on lobbying, on PR, on campaign contributions. Well, is it any surprise then that you end up getting this prescription drug benefit that has a big donut hole in the middle of it? Drug companies making record profits. So we've got to change how business is done in Washington. This is one of the differences I have with Senator Clinton. Senator Clinton is a good person. She's a hard-working senator. She's a smart person. But she doesn't see the problem with lobbyists in Washington. And my attitude is, look, let me tell you, this is why I decided not to take money from PACs, not to take money from lobbyists, because I don't want to just be the Democratic version of what we have right now. I want to completely change what's going on in Washington, because that's how we're going to change America. That's how we're going to change America. So, if you're ready for change, we can go ahead and tell those lobbyists their days of setting the agenda are over. They have not funded my campaign. They will not run my White House. They will not drown out the voices that are the people when I'm talking to the United States of America. And then we can really get to the work that needs to be done. Now, I don't want to just talk about our healthcare crisis. I want to do something about it. So I've already said we're going to work with employers to reduce your premiums by $2,500 per family per year if you've got health insurance. If you don't have health insurance, you can buy into a plan that we set up that is as good as the health care I have as a member of Congress. You can't be excluded for pre-existing conditions. If you can't afford it, we will subsidize you. And we won't wait 20 years from now to do it, or 10 years, we'll do it by the end of my first term as President of the United States of America. I want to make an economy that works for the American people. Now understand, I believe in the free market, I believe in capitalism, I believe in entrepreneurship, but when a CEO makes more in a day than ordinary workers make in an entire year. And then the CEO is the one that gets the tax break, and the worker gets nothing. And then, if the company goes belly up, the CEO gets a golden parachute, $1 million bonus, and the worker loses his pension. Something is wrong. It's not fair. It's not fair. And so we are going to go ahead and take tax breaks away from companies that ship jobs overseas. We're going to give them to companies that invest right here in Pennsylvania, right here in the United States of America. We're going to make sure that our trade agreements are fair. I believe in free trade. I believe that our workers can compete with anybody in the world, but I also believe in fair trade. And that means labor standards and environmental standards and safety standards, so China's not shipping toys that have lead paint in them for our kids to play with. I want to make sure that we're rolling back those Bush tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans and give those tax cuts to hard-working Americans like you that deserve them. $1,000 per family, offsetting your payroll tax. Senior citizens, if you make $50,000 a year or less, you shouldn't have to pay income tax on your Social Security. You're already having a tough time. I want to invest in infrastructure to rebuild our roads, our bridges, our locks, our dams, our hospitals, our schools, putting people back to work that have been losing out because of the housing slump. And when people tell me we can't afford to do it, I say if we can afford to spend $10 billion a month in Iraq, we can afford to spend $10 billion a month right here in the United States of America, putting people back to work. I want to create new opportunities, new jobs, by investing in green technology. The only way we're going to change the price of gas at the pump is if we change our energy policy. We need to cap the emission of greenhouse gases that cause global warming, get billions of dollars that we reinvest in alternative fuels, in solar, in wind. We can create millions of green jobs, millions of jobs, making windmills in old steel factories, making solar panels in old warehouses, putting people back to work, improving our environment, and reducing our dependence on foreign oil. And when we reduce our dependence on foreign oil, that may reduce ExxonMobil's profits, but it's also going to reduce prices for you at the pump. That is a strategy that we've got to take, but we need a president who's willing to take some leadership on the issue. I want every child to have the best education this country has to offer. From the day that child is born to the day they graduate from college. Which means we've got to invest in early childhood education to close the achievement gap. I don't want to just talk about how great teachers are. I want to reward them for their greatness by giving them higher salaries and giving them more support. I want the highest standards for our students, but I don't want those standards measured just by a single high-stakes standardized test, because I don't want teachers teaching in a test. I want our students learning art and music and science and history and all the things that we had a chance to learn when we were in school. And I don't know about you, but I think it's about time we made college affordable for every young person in America. Which means so, we're going to have a $4,000 tuition credit, every student, every year. But young people, you're going to have to get something back. You're going to have to spend some time in community service or national service, work in a homeless shelter, work in a veterans home, join the Peace Corps. We'll invest in you, you invest in America. Together we'll move the country forward. Now, let me just make one last point, then I'm going to take some questions. It's going to be hard to do a lot of these things as long as we continue this war in Iraq. You know, my job as Commander-in-Chief will be to keep you safe. And I won't hesitate to do what's required. I won't hesitate to strike against those who would do us harm. But keeping you safe starts with keeping our military, the finest military on earth. That means training our troops properly, equipping them properly, putting them on proper rotation so they're not on 3 or 4 tours of duty. And it means treating our troops properly when they come home. No more homeless families. No more paying for disability payments. A better GI Bill. It also means using our military wisely. The war in Iraq was unwise. I think most Americans recognize that. That's why I opposed it in 2002. That's why I will bring it to an end in 2009. I will end this war in Iraq. But I don't want to just end the war. I want to end the mindset that got us in the war. Yeah.